Okay, so this is about quadratics, and we're just going to use just your pictures of your quadratics, and you're going to tell in the domain. So that domain is just going to be the types of values that that x can be. So the domain, we're always going to just look at what those x values are. And then the range is we're going to figure out what those y values can be. Now remember that x is your horizontal axis. So x is your horizontal axis, and then y is that vertical axis. So then we're going to look at that. And then that vertex point, so this vertex is just your point. It's just a point, and it tells you it's where it starts changing directions. And it's either going to be, you're either going to have a minimum point. So a minimum point is when it's going to be happy, it opens up, or it's going to be happy. And then the sad point, so you're going to have your maximum point when it is sad. So that means that it opens down. So we're going to go through and we're going to figure this out. And then your zeros, this is where you're going to have when the y is 0. And I'll get more into that. Those can also be called the y-intercepts or the x-intercepts. And we call these the roots. And we're not going to go any farther than just using graphs to do this. So everything can be done using your friend Desmos. I'll give you the function rules like I did in lesson 1. And then you'll just always make a graph on Desmos to go through. I'm not asking you to solve anything algebraic when it comes to quadratics. So in this case, we're looking at this, and this is your domain. So if I look, this graph stops right there and right there. That's where it stops. So I'm going to look at my x-axis, and I'm going to bring those points straight down. So I brought those points straight down. So my domain here, for my domain, those values is going to be between, and then this counts by like, this is 1/2, so this is -1, this is 1, 2, this is 3. So my domain is between -1, I should put the word between -1 and 3. That's my domain. So then we're going to do the same thing with our range. And our range, we have to just estimate on this one because it's going to go everything that we're just going to go up. And we're going to see where that goes. So I'm going to transfer this over to my y-axis. So if I look, this is -2, this is -3, so that would be 2.5. So I'm going to guess that that line right there is -2.25 because between 0.5 and 0, between there would be 2.25. So we're just making an educated guess. That's okay. And it's always going to be at that vertex point. We'll talk about that in a second. And then this is going to be like, oh, okay, so I'm going to go all the way up to here. So there's 2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So my range is between -2.25 and 4. That's going to be my range. So that's going to be your range. And then your vertex point. So your vertex point is this point right here. This is your vertex. So when you have your vertex, and it's a point, so you have to find, and we always let vertex be that H, K. I don't know why they use those letters H and K. They just do. But this value is right here between 1 and 2 would be 1.5. And then I'm going to go down -2.25. So this is 1.5 and -2.25. Now the coolest thing about your vertex is this number right there, that -2.25, happened to be the same as part of your range. That's not a mistake. That is nothing new. That negative 2.25 happens to be going to be part of your range. That is not a mistake. And then your zeros is where does this hit on your x-axis. So these would be your, these are your zeros. This one is your zero right there. So your zero hits when x is 0 and when x is 3, because it's where does it hit on that x-axis. Okay, we're going to go through and do example 2 again. So let's find the vertex first because it's a little bit easier. I think it's a little bit easier. So there's my little vertex point. So there's my vertex point. And that vertex point says, oh, well, I'm going to go over 3 to the left because that says negative 3 right there. And then I'm going to go up 1. So that's my vertex point. So then we look and our graph stops here. So it stops there and there. So I'm going to transfer this up to your x-axis because your domain is on your x-axis. So I'm going to transfer that up. So there's my domain. So my domain is going to be between -5 to -1. That's going to be my domain. And then my range, and this time my range goes down because this time my vertex point is my maximum point. So because this is my vertex, this is also my maximum point. This point right here was my minimum point. But this one is going to be my maximum. So up here was my minimum point because it was a happy graph. This is a sad graph, so I'm going to have that maximum point. And it was like yesterday when you had to find that maximum profit or that maximum revenue, that's what you were looking at. You were looking at that vertex point. That gave it to you. So we're going back to our range. I'm going to take these and I'm going to put them over on my y-axis. So I'm going all the way from -3 all the way up to 1. So between -3 to 1. And if you notice, there's a 1 there, there's a 1 there. That is not a mistake. This happened to work out. This vertex was -3. Don't worry about that. That's a mistake that this -3 and that -3 are the same. But this one and that one are not a mistake. That will always happen. So now we're going to look at our zeros. And your zeros are where they hit on that x-axis. So x is equal to -4 and x is equal to -2. Those are your two zeros because those are those points that it will hit on your x-axis. And I found all of this just by using my graph. I've only found this by using my graph.